Hey everyone, I'm Mike Del Preti, and you're listening to Context, the podcast where I'm talking to industry leaders about what's changing in the world of real estate. My guest today is Wendy Forsythe, Chief Marketing Officer of EXP. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Mike.
Thanks for coming into town, into Boulder.
You're welcome. I said on the way in, it was a beautiful day in Boulder. And you said, well, not as beautiful as it could be, but it's pretty nice here.
We could do better. There's clouds. Typically, we don't have a lot of clouds.
Well, for those that don't get to see this, we're looking out over this beautiful campus. There's mountains on one side, there's students out on a big green lawn out there. It's a pretty magical spot.
Yeah, no, it's great. Can't complain. So happy you're here. Let me start by asking you this: how do you typically start your day?
My day starts early. I'm a morning person, so I very much believe in adjusting energy and tasks for when your energy is high in the day. So the alarm rings at 5 a.m. I'm usually awake sort of 10 minutes before then, kind of
Mm,
waiting for the alarm to go off. Then a cup of coffee follows that like very quickly. And then I head out for a run.
mm.
So I run probably like, depending if I'm training for a race or not, I'm a marathoner and a distance runner. So if I'm training for a race, I'm running 5 days out of the seven a week. So I usually run 3 or 4 days, weekdays, and then on the weekends.
What kind of coffee?
Just Keurig, Starbucks, coffee.
All right. And do you find the runs helpful to kind of clear your mind, clear your thoughts? Are you working through work problems actively, or is it just kind of a relaxation time?
Now I'm working through
Yeah.
work problems, life on the run. I listen to podcasts and I listen to audiobooks. It's my creative time. It's
Yeah.
like my creative meditation time. So I become inspired by the content I listen to. I can give you a plug because I listen to your podcast as one that is on the playlist there. And then things just, percolate, right? Where
Hmm.
it's like, oh, I know what I should do, or, oh, I want to write that down. So I run with my phone and I will stop. I'll stop the Garmin and pull the phone out and like write notes, write ideas, write thoughts. And it really is my creative time. It also keeps my energy in alignment and it keeps you working through stress and, gives you that kind of high energy that you need to do what we do every day.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I can relate to a lot of that. That's wonderful to hear. So you've been in the real estate industry for quite a while. Why is it so slow to change?
I was at a dinner this week and the question was asked, what do you think the industry will look like in 5 years? And my answer was, it's probably going to look somewhat like it looks today. There'll be different challenges, there'll be some obstacles. Nobody has the crystal ball, but the industry is slow to change. And there are situations that we work through, but the fundamentals of the business and the personalities that are attracted to this business. So, that entrepreneur, salesperson that is the real estate professional, like that person doesn't change. So, the dynamics of the industry, I don't think change as much as policies, licensing, rules, those things can change. Market changes, but the people in this industry, I think, are primarily wired the same way.
Have you been surprised at how little changes?
I mean, yes and no. I got my license in the early 1990s. So, I mean, I'm totally dating myself in saying that. It feels like yesterday. But when I started, the MLS book was a three-ring binder in my market. So, we've changed dramatically from a technology perspective and how the industry interacts and relies on technology. But yet, that interpersonal side of the industry is very similar. If I look back to what I learned as a new agent back in the 90s, I learned how to have conversations with people. I learned how to ask questions to qualify people, to understand their motivations, their desires, their time frame. Like those are still the same sorts of things we would teach a new agent today in 2024.
Hmm. What's the one bit of advice you would give to a new agent starting today?
Just do it. To
Yeah.
borrow from the famous slogan, but I think that we overthink things too much instead of just doing it. So for me, when I started out, one of the pivotal turning points was learning how to call expired listings.
Mm,
And I just did it. I picked up the phone and I took those expireds and I had a script and I fumbled through the words and I got better the more that I did it. And I listened and I got better the more I did it. And I did it some more and I got better. And I think that today, the equivalent to that, calling expireds is still a good idea. But I think the equivalent to that are some of the things we do on social media, right? People don't want to do video. They don't want to put themselves out there on social media as a mechanism of building their brand and telling their story. And my advice is just do it because it's a vital part of our business today.
right. Just do it. Just give it a go. It reminds me of my last podcast with Mark McLaughlin, where he said, come and get it. The business is there. Just come and get it.
Yeah.
You mentioned technology a few moments ago. Is there a piece of technology right now that's actually moving the needle that you've seen?
I mean, we're living and breathing AI in a lot of ways. So I think it's moving the needle. It's moving the needle from a, marketing perspective in just how my team, utilizes AI as part of marketing.
Mm,
Whether it's, developing custom, chat GPT bots to help us with content and communications, or it is using, AI to enhance workflows and, create efficiencies. So we're leaning on that technology to move the needle in a number of different ways.
what kind of technology do you think the industry needs right now?
I think that operational efficiency is always important.
Mm,
Whether you're a solo agent, a team leader, a brokerage owner, a mega broker like EXP, the more efficient we can set up our operations, the more we have resources and time to focus on providing great service to our customers. So, going back to AI, anything that we can use from a technology perspective to introduce that efficiency is a cost savings and then it becomes a resource savings or redistribution of resource. And I think
hmm.
that's a win-win all the way around.
Okay. So a little while ago, I did some research, secret shopping into agents,
Mhm.
right? Where we kind of went out and went into open houses and filled out a bunch of forms. And it turns out we have this last mile problem where agents are just not calling people back, like kind of 50% of the time.
Mhm.
And actually, related to that, I mean, I heard from an EXP agent who got in touch with me after, and she's like, I'm generating referrals and leads, and I'm reaching out to other agents, and they're not getting back to me. So, why are agents not calling anyone back?
I have no idea. I do not have an answer for this question. I too secret shop.
Mm,
So I secret shop with open houses. And the other type of secret shopping I'll do is if I'm going in to talk to a group of agents, I will secret shop, those agents. And it is a problem. And it's been a problem for as long as I've been in the industry. And I think it goes back to in many ways, the just do it, right? Like for some reason, do not follow up on those leads. So, a secret shop experiment I did recently was, my husband and I have just been transferred into town and we're coming in on this weekend and we're looking to buy.
hmm
Send that email to 5 agents
mm,
and see what sort of responses you get.
hmm
I got one response 2 days after I sent the email.
Wow.
Now, I couldn't have put any more blinking red lights
hmm
in that email for an agent to say, call me, yet they don't. So, I mean, this is a fundamental problem in our industry. And I always tell agents, like, please just call people back.
Yeah.
If your phone rings, pick it up. People are probably doing everything they can do to avoid calling you. So if somebody does actually call, like, pick up the phone, it's important.
Is there a solution other than just do it?
I mean, maybe there's technology, right? Like there certainly is automation that could be introduced, and many agents play with that. You're sort of shaking your head, like, yeah, it doesn't feel good, right? So, we cannot automate the human connection out of our business. So, I think the solution is the great agents that understand how to excel in this business don't have this problem because they pick up the phone, they call people back, they follow up, they stay in touch, they communicate.
Yeah. I think as you're saying that, I see all these It can be powered by AI or not, but some sort of AI agent that can handle lead nurturing and whatnot. And I think about some of the worst experiences I have in my life, and it's on the phone in some sort of phone tree, right? Trying to get to somebody. The last thing I want is a phone tree calling me
Yes.
and
Yes,
starting to
exactly. Yeah.
interact.
I hate anytime I get an IVR, right? Press 4, press 5, press 6. Like, it's like, oh, I hate that.
Yeah, you need to slow down and say agent or representative as slowly and enunciated as possible to get
Yes.
to a human.
Yes.
Interesting. So you spend a lot of time talking to agents and working with agents. Have you noticed a difference between what agents say they want and what they actually want?
I would say I notice a difference between what agents say they're going to do and what they actually do. And that element of discipline is the backbone of success. Our business really is not overly complicated, but we make it complicated when we don't do the things that we say we're going to do.
Hmm.
So that's the type of conversation that I often have with agents is, if you say you're going to make 5 contacts a day, did you make the 5 contacts a day? And how you made those contacts, whether they're online leads, sphere of influence, door knocking, social media, whatever it is, the tactics almost don't really matter. It's the behavior and creating the discipline of the behavior that leads to the success. So that is where there's the opportunity to dig in. And that
Hmm.
is why coaching has become, such a mainstay in our industry, is because people who can develop those skills and find ways to hold themselves accountable really are the ones that do well in the business.
Okay. And if you're out there recruiting agents and you're saying, "Hey, join EXP,"
Mhm.
what are they looking for?
They're looking for a business conversation on how joining EXP is going to help take them to the next level of their business. And specifically with EXP, they're looking usually very much forward facing in, okay, I've learned how to sell real estate. I know I can sell 10 houses a year. I know that I could maybe do some things to sell 20 houses a year, to sell 30 houses a year. What I don't know is what happens in my life and my world if I can't sell 10, 20, 30 houses a year. And with EXP, with building the revenue share side of our business, with building the stock side of our business, they have an opportunity to diversify. And that becomes part of that business conversation is like, my livelihood can be more than just transactions and focusing on transactions.
Mm,
Now, we attract some of the top producing, most productive agents in the business, and then they're able to build pillars of revenue.
right.
And that's a really fun conversation that I have just so enjoyed being able to have with people. Because prior to joining EXP and other brokerages I worked with, you would focus on what do we need to do in your business to get you from 10 transactions to 20 transactions.
Hmm.
And that was great, right? If that happened, when that happened, that was great. But if something happened in your life or you wanted to retire, then what happened to your income? What happened to your legacy? And that is really the gift that Glenn Sanford and EXP has given to the industry. And it is a super fun conversation to have with people.
Mm. And outside of building those revenue streams, in this day and age, in this market, what kind of support are the agents looking for from a brokerage like EXP?
Agents really want when they need somebody that they can get somebody.
Hmm.
Right? So, whether it is a Friday night and they have a question on a form or a Sunday afternoon and they're in an offer situation that's a little sticky that they need some guidance on, or a Tuesday morning and, it's sales meeting day. When they need somebody, they want to be able to reach out and find somebody for that support. So I talk to a lot of agents that share that one of the things that is often a myth about EXP is that because we are a virtual company, there isn't going to be that level of support.
Mm,
And then what they learn when they join us is that it's actually just the opposite, that there's more support because there's always somebody there on the other end of a broker phone when there's a question that requires, a broker's input on that, that there's
Yeah.
always somebody there at our, agent care desk to answer an email, a phone, or a chat, and that actually the support is increased over what they experienced before. So the short answer is like when they want somebody to help, they want to know that there's somebody there to help them.
Yeah. I mean, in the market we're in, right? It's a downturn. What kind of agents are going to survive and kind of thrive in this market? Is it just agents that are just going to do it? Just do it?
I mean, it is agents that have planned well. There's obviously a financial component of that. If, we look at a macro level, right? Number of transactions across the country are down. In many cases for agents, their transactions are down. Although I would say that's not all agents. We have many agents that are having their best years ever, right?
Mm,
And they're up. So it is about having a system in place to be consistent and do the things in your business that are going to generate business opportunities when they're there.
yeah. What if we switch that over to brokerages? What kind of brokerages are going to survive and thrive in this kind of market?
That's a whole other swim lane of questioning. I mean, we're seeing it become harder and harder for like smaller mid-size brokerages. And I would say, especially that mid-size, that messy middle, right?
Mm, hmm.
Like that's when it's really tough when you see a drop in transactions that hits that messy middle really, really.
Why? What is it about the messy middle that
They
hits
just
them
don't
hard?
have the margins,
Mm,
right? They don't have the margins to make it work. They usually do not have the money in the bank if there is a down year.
hmm.
So they're squeezed from all different level. They have agents that want more support during the downturn, and at the brokerage level, they have fewer resources to provide that support. So we're seeing, a number of those, mid-sized brokers choose to join us here at EXP, and like it's just like, why am I doing this? It makes no sense anymore.
Yeah.
So I think we'll continue to see that.
So the big brokers, the small brokers will survive and thrive. What other factors would you kind of attribute to a company that's going to do really well in a market like this?
I think a company that has scale, right? I mean, it goes back to what I was just saying. When you have scale, it is easier to look at your cost per transaction of servicing the business. And if you have that operational efficiency built into that scale, that becomes a key metric of success.
Hmm. We don't need to name names, but
Mhm.
do you think there's winners and losers right now?
Yeah, I think there's always winners and losers in every market, good and bad, right? So, we're seeing that as we move through the current market. We're seeing, companies grow and we're seeing other companies not grow. What I think about that I find a little bit baffling are the, imitator companies
Hmm.
that decide to get into the market at a time like this. And they come into the market with a strategy of like, yeah, we're going to do all those things too. But where do you find the resources? Where do you find the time? Where do you find the patience from agents, right, to build all of that infrastructure that it takes to really service them effectively? So I find that an element of our market right now that's interesting.
Right. Kind of bigger is better, right? If you're at a big company that has the resources, it can invest in different areas, whether it's technology, training, support, whatever.
Yeah, I think bigger is better when you can also support and service locally
Hmm.
because you need local support in the market. Real estate is different here in Boulder than it is in Southern California, than it is in, Scottsdale, Arizona. So having that local expertise to support in the local markets is an important part of that. The other thing that I think is super interesting that is happening is that real estate has become a lot more global.
Hmm.
So, we operate in 24 countries. The amount of business that I see happening from here in the US between our agents overseas in Europe or our agents in South Africa, there's really, that transient aspect of the business that is super fascinating to see.
Well, that's an interesting point. Are there any synergies between those different markets?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you give a couple examples?
Yeah, like we have agents here. I'll use Miami as an example. We have agents in Miami who have coined Miami as the Dubai of the US. So we operate in Dubai. So they have a very close relationship with our Dubai agents, and
Yeah.
they are there is business going back and forth, between our two countries. So to be able to build out those networks is, really fascinating to see that happen. And it opens up a whole different element of, the business. We have an agent in the Midwest who has, family in Europe, and he spends most of his time in Europe, still runs his team in the Midwest, but is building out a team over in Italy and throughout Europe.
Hmm.
I talked to an agent last week that started with, a very wealthy investor from overseas who was investing here in the US. And he's now sort of working overseas with him as well as what he's doing domestically. So there are lots of synergies there on a global level.
Is it an actual application of network effects where the more countries you're in, the more valuable the entire brokerage ecosystem becomes?
Yes.
Yeah. I wish there was a follow up to that, but I can't think of anything.
I like that you are thinking, though. I see the wheels turning.
Well, the automatic responses prove it, but I don't know how I would prove it, or anyone.
It is an interesting thing to dive in, and it's something that we should probably dive into is the amount of business that is happening, between these synergies. And as we continue to grow internationally, like it's definitely something that we see more of.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I think. I think, oh, okay, EXP is going to, or any brokerage is going to launch in a new country. Well, that's just a silo, Okay, they're in France, they're in Spain, they're in the UK. Those are just new markets.
Mhm.
What are the benefits or what are the advantages? And yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think a lot of people think about those synergies and the
Yeah.
network effects of being in more and more and more markets.
And that's where I think that we have opened up, at least for me coming new into EXP. So I joined EXP earlier this year. So sort of 6 months in, my, I think third week, I was overseas,
Hmm.
in Portugal with EXPers from across the globe, but primarily throughout Europe. And it was such a light bulb moment because I was able to see that transference of knowledge of the business, of the connections sort of happening firsthand. And I see it in two ways, right? I see it from a production perspective. So the examples I just gave of, business happening from overseas clients here domestically and vice versa. And then I also see it from a revenue share perspective, where agents here domestically have connections with other agents overseas and they're able to build out their revenue share line through that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is really like playing on a whole other like playing field that other companies, don't have access to that we do. In a couple weeks, we have our annual EXP Con here in the US. We have every single country leader from all 24 countries that we operate in
Wow.
will be on site with us in Miami as part of that event.
Hmm.
And we have agents from all across the globe that will be in that event. So they are really connected in real life. And that synergy is a real thing because of the business opportunity that is available there.
I've been to EXPCon in the past, and the thing that struck me and really stuck out from that experience was every agent there felt like they were working together on a team, with this shared ownership, which
Yes,
really struck me as interesting.
it is.
They actively wanted to help each other out and help the business out. I mean, you could put that down to a lot of things, culture and Glenn as the founder and all of that, but literal ownership in the company with stock makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference. It is part of the secret sauce that is very hard to articulate.
Yeah.
So being in marketing, like that's what we think about all the time is how do we message? How do we share our story? And it is an intangible that you feel when you're with that group.
Hmm.
And it is one of the things that separates us is that we do have that spirit of collaboration and cooperation is completely aligned because of the ownership in the company.
Yeah.
So when you look at a sort of traditional brokerage model, it's very common for agents to feel upset when new agents join the brokerage because they're like, well, that's less opportunity for me. Here at EXP, they're like, how can I help you succeed? This
Hmm.
is more opportunity for me. And that is such a different mindset. And it's such a healthy mindset when it comes to the types of personalities, to go back to the top of what we talked about, that are attracted to this business We are competitive driven people, but we also have a big altruistic component
Hmm.
of wanting to help others. So it aligns those things very, very nicely.
When I had Glenn out to my class, must have been last year, he said exactly that. The secret sauce behind EXP was offering agents stock.
Mhm.
Shifting gears a little bit, you're a leader in the industry. Can you share a particular experience you've had that's shaped your leadership style?
That's a interesting question. I mean, there are hundreds of experiences that have shaped my leadership style, and my leadership style is still getting shaped, right? Somebody said to me this week that I was very authentic.
Hmm.
And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And they said, "Well, we see you on social media and you post about things, and we can tell that it's really you posting and like really you talking in that. And when
Yeah.
we see you on stage or we meet you, it feels like it aligns." And I wouldn't say that there's like any strategy in that. It's just I am who I am and I've become comfortable enough in my skin to share my opinion and to like be okay with putting it out there. I'll give the fact that I'm Canadian credit for that. So maybe that's where my leadership style comes from. But I do believe very much in transparency. I believe that it's okay to say you don't know everything you don't know, but I'll go find out.
Yeah.
And I love learning. I love talking with people. I care what people think, which sometimes is a burden. Uh, but I want to do right by people around me and really deliver value. So I lead with that and have learned to try to let go of any negative things that come along with that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great to hear. I'm a big fan of transparency, and it was a question I was thinking about asking you, but you've already answered it. An example of that, and what I hear is just saying, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? Authenticity is so important in this day and age. And I really like what you're saying about you're active and that people can tell it's you posting.
Hmm.
I think if you want to be authentic, you need to write and communicate in a style that actual human beings write and communicate in.
Right.
And that's where AI can cause some problems. That's where, PR departments can also cause some problems. I'm sure you've read press releases or investor decks that are clearly communicating in a way that no human being will communicate to another human being.
Yes, yes. And, being responsible for a PR department
Mm,
on behalf of EXP, I mean, that is something that there's the voice that we have as individual leaders. So, within the company, we have Glenn, we have Leo, myself, we have, a number of tremendous leaders that each have our own brand and voice. And I think one of the great things that Glenn and Leo have really made space for is the ability for us as leaders to have that voice. But at the same time, we do represent EXP and
mm.
we represent all of our agents and we represent this great brand. So aligning those two things is an important part of what we do. And being responsible for the marketing and the messaging and the voice of the brand, we don't want the brand to feel corporate
Hmm.
because we're not a corporate brand.
Right.
So striking that right tone, even though a message may be quote unquote a corporate message, we really give that a lot of thought to be consistent with who the personality of the brand of EXP is, as well as the leaders and the agents within the brand.
How do you do that? I mean, if you're writing something, do you just sit there and think really, really hard about it? Or is there some other mechanism you use?
There's a lot of editing.
Yeah.
So if I'm writing for myself versus if we're writing something, myself or one of my team members is writing something on behalf of the brand of EXP, it's a lot of editing. So it's the classic, I mean, you're a writer. It's a classic sort of get everything down on the proverbial screen and then edit. So one of the ways we edit is like take out any corporate bingo language, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
if it's like transformative, like we're going to strike that. Like that's not a word. And I mean, this, we wordsmith like very
Yeah.
closely.
Yeah.
So it's a constant exercise of trying to do that.
Mm.
Now, I will say we've developed some chatbots, so some custom, AI that we'll use to help us with editing, not to do the writing for us, but to help us with the editing.
Sure.
So we've built the AI so that it knows, don't use this word, use this tone. we want to say these things. And then we'll pipe through everything that we've written out there so that we're training the bot on how we want to talk.
Yeah.
And that is a tremendous use of AI that helps us save time and helps us keep consistency in our messaging.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. You mentioned Leo. He was out here last semester. How's he doing as CEO?
He's killing it
Yeah.
as CEO. Yeah, he's doing great. He leads from the front and he is passionate and engaged and is, ready to go fight the fight for the good of this industry and for the good of EXP. So, yeah, he's killing it.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, this episode's sponsored by Leo at EXP. But that's got to be, I mean, seriously, that's got to be what agents want right now in this market with all the uncertainty, all the, lawsuits and clear cooperation and all this stuff going on. I imagine you would want the leader of your company out there
Yes.
with a voice all the time. Maybe
Yes.
you agree with it, maybe you don't, but at least they're leading from the front,
Yeah.
like you said.
And that's what our agents tell us
Yeah.
is like they're very thankful for that. They're thankful that not only is there, leadership being expressed from the front, but it's being explained,
Mm,
right? So it's not just like do this or I say this, it's here's why.
hmm.
And that is very thoughtful and that is very intentional because we want people to understand the decisions that we're facing as an industry so that they can form their own opinions along the way. But most importantly, our job as their broker for our EXP agents is to make sure we're giving them the right tools to be successful
Yeah.
from a regulatory perspective and from a like personal perspective. And that has been very much demonstrated over the last 90 days.
Great. Well, we're about at time. Any final thoughts before we close up?
I would just say it's going to be an interesting year as we get ready to move into 2025. I think that we're not done with seeing changes in the industry from a regulatory perspective. I think we're seeing some optimism, about the market. So that is a positive note. And I'll go back to the just do it. Like keep focusing on your business. You can be successful in this business no matter what the market is. And it's really fun to work with people that are dedicated and committed to always honing their craft. And that's what we all do.
Well, I think you just named this podcast episode, Just Do It.
Just do
Hopefully,
it.
hopefully I don't get a cease and desist from Nike. All right, Wendy, thank you very much for joining today. And that's it. You've been listening to Context. I'm Mike Del Preti. If you want to check out more of my research or other episodes, go to my website, mikedp.com. Thanks, and we'll catch you next time.